Okay, I think we've got everybody coming on and joining us here today. Wow, where did January go? It was a fast January, and first of all, thank you for your listenership and thank you for joining us today. For you that don't know who I am, I'm Chad McDaniel. I'm President and CEO of Execs In The Know. And it's a pleasure to have you join us in, I think, this important conversation. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Laura, here shortly. But when I was thinking of the new year, 2024 here, there's a lot of topics we could have chosen from. But this particular topic today about using real-time AI driven insights for seamless omni-channel engagement resolution and agent experience and many other things, Laura, that we're going to talk about today was top of mind to me. So I welcome you. Thank you. I know how busy everybody is, but I'm really going to ask throughout the conversation. There's a question mark box that you'll see on the platform here. And as we're talking through the concepts, please put your comments there or put your questions there because we learn through each other. And I'll do my best to get all of the perspectives out there, but please use your participation because we learn from each other. There's also in the platform a resource center, and we'll make sure that some of the links and things that we talk about today are included in the resource center and use that too. But let's lean in, let's get started. I have just a couple of slides I want to walk you through, and then Laura, bear with me, and we'll get to you here in a second. But it's a pleasure to get the chance with you, Laura. So really today we're going to talk about how to equip some of the agents with some real-time visibility. Some of you are doing this, and we're going to talk about some best practices and some other things, ways to use AIs to support the agent, enhance the customer experience. Again, I know as a community, we've been talking a lot about this over the last year or so, but we're really going to kind of look at the 2.0 and freshen up on it, how to improve agent performance in some of the conversations, but again, really that 2.0 with it. And then, of course, the Q&A session and some final thoughts and wrap up. If this is your first time to Execs In The Know, welcome. We are a corporate CX sharing community, about 8,000 nationally here. Really just leaders learning from leaders. I call it the CX playbook to help us be successful in our careers, in our industry. Lots of ways to get involved. Just go to execsintheknow.com, go to our resource center, our knowledge center, excuse me. All sorts of information. You don't have to do this alone. We are sharing life together as a CX community. We're doing life together as a CX community. Welcome to Execs In The Know. Have a fantastic corporate advisory board. Laura, you probably know some of these leaders and brands. Maybe they're some of your clients, but really industry leaders that are helping shape the narrative, really serving as an advisory to our voice and to the topics and conversations that we have. And I just say thank you so much for all of the leaders that participate in our board. Our signature event, we host twice a year. It's called the Customer Response Summit. It is our in-person live executive forum summit. We're going to be down in Tucson, Arizona, March 12th to the 15th. It's not too late to join us. Our speaker roster is absolutely amazing. I hope you'll come participate. There's some information in the Resource Center that you can have, but always a great time at the Customer Response Summit. For our online community, you know, Laura, we were just excited. We just celebrated our 1,000-person, kind of like a LinkedIn on steroids, our online community called Know It All. This is a corporate private community where it's 24/7. The conversations are rich, a lot of questions being asked. If you're not part of our online community called Know It All, feel free to reach out to me, Chad at execsintheknow.com. I'm so happy to introduce you to our community manager and show you some of the richness of conversation taking place. Okay, Laura, enough about Execs In The Know. Welcome. And Laura, you're traveling today. I guess you're in Boise, Idaho. How's the weather there? Hopefully all good.
Well, admittedly, I haven't been outside yet because I'm from Florida. But the sun is shining, and apparently it's a warm day. So a warmer day than usual.
Well, Laura, it's an absolute pleasure. You and I have known each other for many, many years throughout your career, and I know what an advocate you've been of our industry. Laura Bassett is the Vice President of Marketing of SharpenCX. And Laura, maybe for those that don't know SharpenCX, it's a great product. Tell us a bit about the company, the product, and then if you want to quickly introduce you and yourself, background, so our audience is familiar with you, because you're going to be doing a lot of the presenting today.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So Sharpen has actually been around for about 10, 11 years, focused on contact center as a service. We hear a lot about agent first out there. And what I would say is we focus on that, but we focus on agent first from a build philosophy. And what that does is that means it drives outcomes for the business, right? How we're delivering technology to make sure that our customers are able to service both their agents and their consumers. So that's really kind of what we aim to deliver, and we aim to be on the forefront of innovation as it goes to providing those solutions. As far as myself, I've been in the industry for, well, now I'm going to age myself, but we're just going to say over 25 years. And it's been from the breadth of, hands-on with technology all the way to, being the vendor, actually working with businesses directly to implement the technology, to the marketing and the consulting that I do now. So it's been a fun ride. I love the industry because it's a direct tie from technology to what matters to us every day as people, right? And that's why I can identify with it so closely, right? We see impact of us actually helping businesses and people. So,
Laura, you don't want to age yourself. I'm already aged, so there we go. But it's great to have you. And Laura, when I reached out to you to ask if you would help in this conversation and participate with us, it really meant a lot with your acceptance to do that and just bring some of the knowledge share and thought leadership that we're going to get into. So audience, we're going to continue to make this as interactive as we can. Please use the question box. We're going to lean in and we'll get started here. I have one more slide, Laura. I just want to go with the audience here, just so you're aware of, and it kind of builds into some stuff. Each year, Execs in the Know, we share our corporate, it's kind of our signature research report called the Corporate Trends and Insight Report. We're going to be releasing the 2024 edition next month in Tucson in March. But I took a slide out of here that, as you can see in the trend of the year over year, 2023 to 2022, and these are from our direct community, our corporate voices of operational support technologies. Interesting, the lion's share of what they're investing in artificial intelligence from a support technology. You can see the growth. Agent assist technology can also have an AI bent, but also could be non-AI. Laura, as you and I were talking a little bit about. But I think the story here is that we're going to see this trend continue like we're seeing this year if we did the same conversation next year. And I think it really supports some of the conversation, Laura, that we're going to have as we lean in here. So I just wanted to share that. Laura, I don't know if you have a question or comment on it, but it really does speak to, I think, where the mindset is of most of our community members right now.
Yeah, I definitely think it does. I think there's a lot of great technology out there, and there's things, that we can take advantage of in the immediate, right? But we're seeing so much more intentful investment and intent to use some of these more advanced technologies, and we're figuring out ways to do it effectively.
Yeah. Laura, do you want to take control of the slides? Because we're going to work towards your slides here. Let's lean in. Thank you again. And I can't wait to have the conversation.
All right. Perfect. So I believe that I have it. And there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, before we kick off, so we said we're going to talk about like omni-channel and the agent experience. I think the key here today is that we are going to focus on agents, but we'd be remiss if we didn't say if we said we're only going to talk about agents, right? We know most of the time we end up talking about the customer experience. It's a key part of the overall agent experience. And like I said, there is a ton of great technology out there. There's things that we can start doing now, even without the technology, to create a better experience for both those customers and those agents, right? And I don't want to insinuate that it is something where we maybe don't care about our employees, that we don't focus on that agent experience. But I think many times historically, And I've actually sat with businesses who have told me, we've been so focused on the customer experience, we haven't even paid attention to the tools that we're giving our agents and how hard it is to do their jobs. In over 10 years, I was actually sitting at, I'm going to call it a large transportation company because that leaves it vague enough. But they really took a step back and they recognized that it was becoming a real gap in the customer experience. And that's what brought it to the top. So I think everybody here cares about their employees. They know how important they are. And there are so many different ways that we can show that, everything from culture to different gestures, but there's also the new technology. And I think that new technology and redefining is giving us an opportunity to redefine the way that we work, the way that these individuals work, and the impact that it ends up having on the overall business. So that said, customer experience is a great place to start. To an extent, what we're seeing here on this slide hasn't changed. These expectations are also evolving, right? They're becoming more and more important and more impactful to the business. Now, I doubt that there's anything here that our audience today isn't thinking about, or they're not looking at it going, oh man, I didn't realize that was an important thing to my customers. I would be curious, and maybe this is a place we can use that question mark box, not for a question, but maybe we're able to have the audience chime in. Is there anything here that is surprising, or anything that our audience is seeing that's top of mind for them around their consumer expectations, that they would see, that's maybe not represented here? What is it that's most important that they're trying to address in those customer expectations? And then, while they're doing that, and then I'll open the window in a second because I don't want to get too distracted. So while folks are chiming in, we'll see if anybody has any input there. Again, it's not a new story, but it's a bigger and bigger deal. Customers overwhelmingly, they want more. They expect to be able to use the technologies that they use in their everyday life. They don't expect that just because they're engaging you today, it's a first-time interaction if they already engaged you yesterday, right? So it's the age-old problem of don't make me repeat myself, right? And that is still that leading cause of frustration, right? And so again, it's not new news, but it's something that we have as businesses. Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to quickly ask you, and let's move forward here quickly. But we've been hearing as a community talking about this for a while. But again, from your perspective, Laura, what is the challenge? I mean, easy to say these statements, but what's the challenge? What's in your perspective? What keeps hanging us up here to get to some of these known observations?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, what keeps us from fixing that age-old IVR, right? And it is what to do first. It is how do I use the technology? Where do I get started? But I think it's that we need to focus on meeting those kind of basic expectations, but they're not always simple to meet, right? I might need to take a step back and understand why it is that that customers are having to repeat themselves. How do I use my data to connect that experience? We're still working in system silos in many cases, right? And we're not actually then giving the agents the tools they need to show the customers that to be able to say, oh, I can see that you called me yesterday, or you contacted us yesterday. That was about this. Did something go wrong in between? How can I help you? That seems so simple, but it's actually a level of hyper personalization that differentiates us as a business from the other people that are out there. And we may get overwhelmed. Start with the whole business, right? We could start with
Yeah, I was just going to say, Laura, I mean, we could have a whole talk track on this and debate this all day long, because I've been thinking of the years of community discussion and everything around it, what have been some of the limitations and challenges. But I think any customer service executive individual on this call, everyone wants to do the right thing, of course.
Right.
customer number one, customer in mind. But there's a lot of nuances, so to speak, that kind of creep into that statement. Jason did share a comment, and I know we need to lean into the some of the slides we want to get to. But Jason, thank you. And he just said customers are also expected an omni-channel experience, regardless if they call, then email, then chat. They expected a joined-up service, and I agree with that, Jason, of course. But Laura, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a great example of why is it so hard to get there, right? We have almost competing priorities as a business. Well, what do I do? Do I do the omni-channel? Do I worry about the personalization? How do I connect these things, right? It becomes overwhelming. And that's where I say, look, start with a department, start with one thing that you're going to resolve, start with your VIP customers. And really, because digital is out there. And if we're not enabling customers to reach out to us over digital, they're finding others that will, right? So I think Jason has a very good point. I think that was the name. And again, it becomes a balancing act of how we address these customer expectations. And I think the technologies that are out there nowadays really give us the opportunity to do so. So as we think about that, we also have to think about what the employees, right, are experiencing as we attempt to deliver these solutions, right? We obviously want to put our agents in a position to be successful. We want them to be able, we want as businesses to be able to attract and retain talent that nowadays is actually, it's a higher caliber talent that we need when we think about things like Jason said with the omni-channel, when we think about the different tools we're giving them and all the different things that we expect them to keep up with. And oh, by the way, deliver a personalized experience that's a real conversation to the customer over every channel or any channel, right? And we want to make sure at the same time that they're encouraged, empowered, enabled to perform well for our business. So it becomes a very interesting combination when we see that less than 20% of them say that they're actually very satisfied with their roles. And then when we dig into that, it's not necessarily compensation, right? It's growth and development. It's the right tools to do their job. They're actually and I was actually on a call the other day where I wanted to, just kind of see, and this person I was talking to is like, I love my job because I love helping people. I would stay in this kind of role forever, but they make it really hard for me to do, right? This was not a customer of ours, by the way. But and it's something to say there, like most of these agents actually want to do a good job. And if we gave them the opportunity, I think they would stick around. Yet we battle some of the highest attrition rates out there as an industry, right? So it's everything from the culture to the tools that we need to impact for these agents to impact that satisfaction. And so that's what makes us think about, well, how do we do that? What are those expectations? Of course, we can give more, well, we can't always, but it'd be nice if we could just say, hey, take more money and now you're going to be happier in your job. But that doesn't solve the problem. It's everything from flexible hours, support for remote work, all these things that came in as part of the pandemic. But it's also the tools and the effort that it takes them to do their job, right? What it means to be an agent, right? It's somewhat being redefined. And so their expectations, right? They want those right tools. They see us using these tools in our everyday life, right? It's all on one device. I can do everything with that. And by the way, I want feedback. I want to be empowered to see what type of a job I'm doing and where I can improve, right? That, when I think about that smartphone, they're looking for the capabilities to do a similar thing that gives them. We're still looking at an industry, and this is one that I'm always curious about, but it's like the average is 12 different screens that these agents have to navigate. But at the same time, in their personal lives, everything is becoming more streamlined, right? And so that sets an expectation for the technology that we can deliver, right? And then they want that growth and development. They don't want to be stagnant. They want to have some sort of an evolution plan, whether that is becoming a VIP agent, whether that is handling those omni-channel contacts, whether that's becoming a supervisor, right? They want us to help them succeed. And then when we talk about how and where they work, it shouldn't be that they have lesser capabilities in one location or another, right? Almost, I saw a statistic the other day. It was like 50% or more than half, I think it is, of contact centers have some percentage of their agent population working from home, right? And this could actually be another good place if the audience agrees with me or not. Like, what percent of your agents work at home, and what works well, what doesn't? Or if you don't, why haven't you shifted, right? And maybe, we can share that with your peers here if we're seeing certain things. But in reality, it's already a high stress job. Let's make it consistent no matter where they're working. And to build that high performing culture, let's think about how we do it, even when there is the difference of where they work. Don't put them on an island if they're working at home, right? And because when they're there, they don't have the luxury of, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened to me on this call, or, hey, how do I do this, right? There's no over the shoulder conversations. So we really need to make an effort to support those agents in that virtual environment as well. Let me just open and see. I don't know if we had anybody. It doesn't look like we had anybody that actually put in if they have folks working at home. But if you think about it, or if you have anything to input there, certainly we would be interested. Let me close that now so I can get back. Okay, so the real question then is, if you think about your own environment, and actually let me just take a step back here. What I often like, if we were all in person and we were in a room together, I'd be asking for a show of hands. How many of you have experienced what it's like to do business with your business, to actually be a customer of your business? And as well, how many of you have experienced what it's like to actually service that customer, right? And it's interesting because it's actually grown over time, where more businesses are taking a step back and doing these things. What is it like to be a consumer? How hard is it to do business with my company? But it's still like 20% that have actually walked in the shoes of their agents or their customers. So this is where I always encourage people to dig in. And one thing that we can do is we can just go look at how hard is it? How many applications are we asking our agents to navigate just to even start a conversation, right? I went into a business not too long ago and saw that the current state of that business was, when a call comes in, they actually had to copy and paste from application A to application B, take another piece, copy and paste it in to put the customer number in from somewhere else. And it took them a good 15 to 20 seconds just to get set up to talk to the customer. Meanwhile, they're trying to do almost a fake long hello before they could service the customer. And obviously this was a problem that they're looking to fix, right? So think about how we as businesses are focusing on doing the simple things, minimizing the number of windows that our agents battle with to get through to actual meat in the interaction, right? What are the right tools to resolve that? How do we provide things on top of that, like gamification, to help the agents that are, knowing how they're performing, but doing it in a consistent way across the entire spectrum, right? So what is it that matters about those things? And so this is not a commercial for Sharpen, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, how we're solving that problem, how we're helping those agents to know in real time how we're minimizing what it takes for them to know if they're doing a good job, what they can improve upon. So what you're seeing here is an example of how we're getting them some real-time metrics. right? Helping them not bounce between multiple screens and service multiple channels, all from one desktop. This is how we chose to go about it. I like it because it's simple. The colors actually mean something for them. They can understand what channels are waiting or what metrics and how they're represented for them. Again, this is where we talk about agent first, because if we do think about it from a build philosophy, how are we doing this and giving them everything in that one desktop? It actually drives outcomes for the business, because now that agent is able to be responsive, is able to move on to the next piece of work. And then if you would see, how they maybe when they wrap up a contact and how they can auto summary it right in that same desktop, they don't have to move between tools, right? And it makes it so that they can focus on what they're doing to service the customer and the company and their own results, and actually take them. I've actually heard different customers of ours that I've gone and talked to say that their agents come back and say what a great thing it is to know that they can see their performance both for that particular call or on their day-to-day, because this is something a company can set up to show the metrics that matter for them, right? To be able to see that in real time and to be able to move from work item to work item in real time is really helping drive their agent satisfaction and empowering them to manage their own productivity. So just one example of the ways that we can get this done, and the things to think about for making that agent experience more like what they get at home, right? That one place that they're going to service all their needs. And so I don't want to belabor on that further, but I want to think about, well, where does AI fit into this? It can help us keep our top performers. It can help keep them with that information at their fingertips that they really need to know, right? The more they can familiarize themselves with their customer needs, the better, right? And the more we can provide that information for them, the better that they can deliver. So all this sets us up really nicely for where AI can fit in. There's actually a variety of ways. We're going to talk a little bit, I guess at a high level, there's 3 different ways, right, that AI can transform the experience. We'll start with what I'll call for agents, somewhat an indirect way, where it's indirect to agents, but automating the customer facing side. Very direct to agents, allows them. I mean, if I had a show of hands, once again, I would think that most of us would probably say, just let me solve it on my own. I actually respect a company for doing that. I'm like, that was amazing. That was so fast. I didn't have to engage with anyone and I'm done. Right. So it's indirect kind of to an agent, but it's very direct to your business and it's very direct to your customer. So that's kind of, a top leading way that we'll talk about. These are like the chat bots and the self-service. But then we're going to go into how does it affect that direct agent experience? How can AI help with that? And how can AI help with the supervisor experience, which I think is another one that we really need to force ourselves to consider, right? So let's start with that customer experience. And I know we're about halfway through the webinar. I'm gonna go through this one a little bit quickly because I think we've heard of a lot of these things. But this is where we get the repetitive scenarios out of the way, right? Things like chatbots, things like self-service, but it's not about just letting it sit there. It's about going and revisiting. It's about learning from the conversations you have, but it is 24/7 and it can provide a level of personalization, especially with conversational AI. For all that's happening out there, it becomes very exciting what we can do for our customers, right? And basically what that means is, and this is the way we often talk about it, this becomes very exciting for our agents because they don't have to handle the repetitive things, right? They then get to focus on, I'm going to call them the real problems that our customers are dealing with out there. But what we need to think about as an industry, are we enabling our agents then to handle the more complex work, right? Nobody wants to sit out there and answer the same thing over and over again. But does it suddenly mean that they're ready for consultative work without a big change in their tools, their schedule, how they're being measured, other factors like that? Likely not. But some great things happening with AI that enable those customers to help themselves, whether it be automation, whether it be the knowledge base, right? And we're seeing in the knowledge bases that we can self procure from agent conversations to enhance the knowledge base. So a lot of great ways that AI is impacting there. But like I said, if those agents are going to be more consultative, can we expect that they're ready to go off script, that they're ready to solve those more complex problems, right? I need to grab my water here. And so, and can they do it in a very effective way, right? This becomes a whole new ball game with what we're asking these agents to do, and are they prepared to do it? So there's actually a little bit of a conundrum that happens here, because we could overfeed them too with AI and information, but then we're asking them to become rote, kind of read this to your customer, and they're not actually learning and engaging for the business. They're just kind of reading information. So we need to combine this with a level of empowerment, right? And so it's information, it's making sure they're prepared, but making sure they're empowered. So this goes beyond what we've talked about in the past of having the right information at the right time. I'm sure we've all heard that cliche, right? It's a change in soft skills that we have to drive for agents. And it's a change in the way we need to be coaching and developing them for our business. We're now moving from transactional to more complicated multi-layer issue resolution, right? Oh, and we want them to build a relationship too, right? So, and here's the another question, right? Oh, AI is going to get rid of my job. Well, if AI were perfect, right? Then really, what does that mean? That means all of our agents become a higher level support type, tier 2 type of resource. I don't want to say just support, because our businesses go well beyond that. But there's an element that comes into play with these complex interactions that it doesn't take away that agent, but it does mean that people behind the scenes need to have more autonomy. They need to be more educated. They need to be, empowered, so that they don't become just a relayer of problems to a supervisor that becomes a bottleneck for getting approvals done, right? And making things happen. So, that's really what it means for the business. And that becomes a shift, right? From know and follow a policy to be empowered to resolve customer issues and enhance lifetime value, right? Retain the customers only at a reasonable cost, right? There's a much different level of thinking and training that goes into agents and helping them be prepared to do that. So what do we mean then when it comes to agent empowerment? Thank you. Sorry about that. How do we help our agents get there? We've heard this one before, right? It's going to involve making sure they have access to that right information, that right knowledge, that right customer data. And it's really where employee empowerment, part of AI, comes into play. And this goes back, Chad, to what you were referencing earlier, right? Maybe we start simple. Give them a basic assistant. It could do things like wrap up their calls based on having a transcript of that call or contact, right? It could give them in the moment kind of nudges. The sentiment of this customer is declining. You might want to ask some more questions, engage further, right? It can be very simple things that this assistant can do. But from an agent perspective, now I don't have to pay attention to the different gauges in this application and that application. I'm knowing from my assistant, kind of the angel sitting on my shoulder. Maybe I could, my wingman, think of it however you want to think of it, but feeding the information that they need to be successful. And there's a lot of things that are emerging out there from a technology perspective, from a real-time agent perspective, that enable us to do this. But we shouldn't overcomplicate it, right? If we go and we think about what our agents are doing, how can we help them to be more effective in real time? It could even be that all it takes is, hey, your customer's getting frustrated. Take a pause and ask them a question, right? Check in on them. Do they have something that they want to input here, right? It's not saying that we have to overscript them either, because then we take the human aspect out of customer care, right? Out of customer relationships, right? And then we're able to push those agents forward, and they begin to see in real time how a different level of engagement and understanding where the customer is on the other end of that contact, how a minor shift can affect the overall outcome of that engagement. So it's both, how we help the customers not repeat themselves, give the agent the right information, but how do we help the agents out with the right information to make a better outcome most of the time at a reduced time to resolution. So this gets into another thing. Do our metrics change, right? Is it really about shortening average handle time, or is it about average time to resolution, right? So we need to start thinking about measuring our agents for the way we want them to perform. We want them to get to resolution rather than end a call. And that wingman sitting alongside them to help them out can really help them do that, right? When we mix in those, slow down, focus, your customer sentiment things, how can we coach them in a way that helps them to shift that conversation, right? And then from an agent empowerment perspective, how can we help them to learn from that experience, right? Now we can get things like 100% interaction coverage in real time, right? While contacts are in process, we're handling more of those complex questions. It's driving an evolution in QA, in quality assurance, right? We're no longer at a base scorecard. We're no longer at, the check mark, checkbox, they did this. It's more, we need to coach in the immediate, but we need to help them understand if the right decision was made and what the impact of those right decisions are and how to help make that right decision the next time, right? And we need to help them understand when they did do it effectively, what they did right, right? So this 100% QA isn't only to pick out the problems, right? It's not a big brother approach. It's to enhance the autonomy that as an agent, I can have experience on the right outcome and drive better results for the business by understanding both what I'm doing well and where I could use some improvement, right? And AI can give us the opportunity to do that through gamification, through that, pointing out the blind spots, helping individuals overcome where they're having any issues or where they should have said A versus B, right? So there's a difference too between nudging them and coaching them versus rotely scripting them. We don't want to take away what they do know about the business and the passion and the empowerment that they have to service the customer and personalize the experience. AI can help in all facets of this. And this is where it gets overwhelming, right? But where do I begin? And that's where, once again, I'll just back up and say, start with some of the simple tools for the agent that can help them get over the hump in performance, that can help them be more effective in their day, that can give them a way to do it, on their desktop, type in something and get a response that they need more effectively right there in that desktop. And then tie it in to how their supervisors are really able to assist them. The supervisor component. What is that manager seeing about their team? How can we help them coach those agents? This is another place there's been a gap, is what are the supervisor tools that they need to be a productive coach, a productive manager? And I think all of us could probably identify with, I've spoken to supervisors in contact centers that it's like they worked their way up. Well, what that meant is they were a superstar agent and they left on a Friday and they came back in on a Monday and they were now a supervisor. But what tools do they have to make them most effective in being that supervisor? Did they ever get any coaching on how to coach, right? But things like this are so important now as the role of the agent is advancing, so is the role of the supervisor, right? AI is taking away the easy questions from your agents. Your agents are being empowered to handle really what supervisors did in the past. So guess what? The supervisors are now doing what, right? They're handling even more complex issues. They have some of the same tools that the agents do to help. We think about that 100% QA on any channel, best practice identification. So the technology has to help them as well, right? They need to be able to see how that better resolution, how that helps them be a better coach, how they explain to the agent and find coaching moments to dig deeper into how to leverage the information that agent is getting in real time to affect the outcome, right? But also to help. So that's how we can help them be better supervisors too. And AI plays a role in that, right? How to positively influence those metrics that they're measured against. And those metrics might change, but it's a level deeper than our supervisors have had in the past. How do I influence metrics for an agent performance, right? Does a supervisor maybe have that wingman as well, right? To help them understand what they should be coaching an agent on, how they can best affect those metrics, right? And we can't forget that while we're doing that, right, we're coaching our agents on how to handle multiple channels, how to be human. We're giving them some real-time tools to do it. We're looking at 100% of their calls. We can't just call out the bad ones. Oh, and by the way, you need to have a one-on-one relationship with those agents too, because their satisfaction goes beyond the desk job. It goes, how do I feel? How supported am I as an individual in this business, right? So focusing on that employee experience fosters a better discussion between the coaches and their agents, but giving those coaches the right tools. Like we now have the analytics that say, well, here's an example of a contact where it did drive the right metrics and what influenced that. And so as a supervisor, what really should happen is now I have more time to understand and dig into these things and begin to start doing some real coaching with my agents on what impacts those metrics. And AI can help me determine what the true impact to those metrics are as well. So, and I referenced this a little bit in that conversation, but how do we maintain a little bit of that humanity, right? We talked about the kind of indirect impact from optimizing the customer experience. We talked about how AI can directly empower agents and supervisors, right? Ideally, we want to be proactive as a business. AI can help us do that. It can help us know when to proactively reach out to consumers based on typical customer journeys, right? We can use data to make that overall experience better for everyone, to train agents, to take away pain points for our customers, right? And to drive intelligence into the business. So, so then when we think about that employee experience, it's back to the data. I'm not gonna go much into this, but these are some of the ways, right? We can identify topics within our business. We can identify opportunities to automate. We can identify typical behaviors that we can start to influence with these tools, right? We can identify bottlenecks, ways to enhance conversation. It's really about getting to root cause analysis and doing it in a very human way, right? It's not just about the reports. It's knowing that Susan is struggling with cancellation and Joe is struggling with X, Y, or Z, but having a conversation about it that shows them how to do it effectively and engages in that experience to show them how to be more successful at their job, right? So where can we start today? This is, I think, ultimately what we all want to get to, right? We don't want our agents to be robotic. We don't want to only focus on the customer experience side. We want to make sure we automate the right things, but we don't know how we can go about solving that. There are some things we can do to either lay the groundwork. In some cases, we need to look and say, well, right now I have all of my data in 4 different repositories, right? So, what are some of the things that we can tackle, right? First, as we start to dig into AI, I think we might all admit that there's probably a gap in our own proficiency level with what the tools can do for us, right? What they are out there. I think if we went and dug, we'd find that some of them are pretty simple. We can implement on a small scale. We can kind of practice. We can get our hands on it. We can use things to analyze our data, but we also need to be careful that we're looking at things holistically, right? We need to start maybe with solving specific pain points, big things that are impacting our business. We need to focus on training and empowering our agents, right? What can we do there? And that data framework, right? It's the old, and I've got it here on the slide, garbage in, garbage out, right? We want to be able to make sure that if we don't have our data in one place, how do we connect those pieces? We don't necessarily need to have a big data migration project, but we want to be able to say, go back and how do I get the right information out of that data so that we can think about what AI needs to go in and what questions do we need to ask AI to go in and determine for us so that we know where a bot can help. We know where a knowledge base can help. We already know that we can take context from conversations and help agents to wrap up those conversations. We can leverage that context to know when we might need to do an automated outreach to our customers. So by understanding too that data and what it gives us in a journey, we begin to understand how we can help our customers by proactively reaching out to them in that journey. So I covered quite a few of these things. I don't want to underestimate the value of just basic automation either. This isn't about jumping straight into AI. Sometimes as businesses, we need to take a look back and say, well, are we doing the right data dips? Are we doing the right screen pops? Right? I told you I was at a business very recently who they weren't doing the screen pop to help the agents have the information there. And so while we have a lot of new shiny objects, I don't want us to forget about the low-hanging fruit either, right? What can we do with our even existing technology, but what can we do to get things in place to take advantage of the AI modeling and that amazing power that data analysis can bring us today to then drive a better holistic customer and agent experience, right? So it could be about automating the customer experience, while at the same time I'm optimizing the agent experience. And then it's to automating the agent experience in key ways once I've made their actual engagement with the consumer that much more effective, right? Because that's where they may be feeling the most pain. So where are you feeling the most pain? Where are the lowest hanging fruit to fix? And how can I start to do that even if on just a small scale, where then I begin to learn and do that then across the business, right? AI can do a lot and can inform us of many things, but we still need to be ready to go and execute, have our systems connected, understand what the decision-making means, and be able then to respond to what that information is, take action on the data. The age-old statement, right? I've got to be able to take action. I need to take action on what I'm learning, or all that information that I'm getting or that I'm able to serve up that I'm not serving up is not adding value, right? And so that's what I would say is really focus on, even if it's small scale, the places where you can add immediate value, resolve the pain for the customer or the agent or the supervisor. I can't forget about the supervisor.
Well, take a drink of water, Laura. That
Yes,
is a
thank
lot
you.
to unpack. Good job there. Thank you. Um, I'm going to go to the first question to you, Laura, but I want to ask the audience. There was a lot of perspectives we've covered over the last bit of talk track here. What's your perspective? Do you see it differently, agree to some of the things we talked about? And so, for example, Laura, I ask you, you talked about agent empowerment and supervisor empowerment, and you gave a bunch of different kind of ideas around both of those areas. I was thinking to myself, what percent do we think of the industry is actually doing this? Is it a third? Is it less than a third? Is it half? I mean, it's a guess, but from your experiences, Laura, from a maturity model, what percent of our industry do you think are doing what you just were talking about in that agent empowerment and supervisor empowerment as an example?
And I don't really have a percent to throw out here that's any kind of a research percent, but
Hmm.
in my experience, the majority of businesses out there are still struggling with just how to handle the complex work, right? Handle the multiple channels, right? And as far as truly empowering, it's rare. I mean, my guess is somewhere south of 20%, and that would be a big number in my opinion. They're
Okay.
truly empowering those agents and automating the experience and empowering the supervisor. I mean, when we look at the statistics, and I wish I could remember the exact number right now, but such a minimal amount of time is spent on actually training our supervisors and our agents how to be most effective, even if it's taking advantage of 15-minute windows for real-time training, right? We as businesses, it's the pace of society almost that's impacted us in our day-to-day work lives and as businesses. And even those are small things we can do to empower our agents, right? The training breaks, and whatnot, fitting it into their day, right?
So let's call the number 20% at best. We still have a long way to go as a community, as leaders of CX, space here. Um, and some of the takeaways fall into this where, you talked about staying up to date, assessing your needs. And a lot of times we talk about trying things, trials and pilots, and, giving areas of minimal risk where you can move forward, but do something. Don't sit on the sideline, be doing something. Um, and then a key thing you talked about is data framework. And again, that could be a whole different conversation, need and assess. So, Laura, before I get into more direct questions here, I just wanted to continue to say thank you for the takeaways. On the data framework, it seems to be a huge area of struggle. Again, anything else you just want to quickly call out, where to start, should start, can start taking action today?
You know, what I would say is, first of all, recognize that you probably do have the data that you
Mm.
need to drive the intelligence, right? It might not be all in one repository, right? But you likely have a contact center system, a CRM, right? I have customer data, I have customer journey, I have, uh, you know, and then it's a matter of how are you looking at that data, right? So that's where I was saying, the reality is we have the data. We just have to get to the next level of, are my systems actually providing me the exposure to it that I need so that I can learn from it and I can have a continuous improvement cycle, um, right? So that it informs what I do the next time or what I
And
take to self-service,
yeah.
right? That simple, right? Tell me what to automate.
And audience, we've got a lot of smart people on this call. I know who's on this call right now for the most part. What's your perspective? I mean, what comments would you want to share that I may be able to give? Because we learn through each other, just observations, thoughts, agreements, disagreements. What's your perspective on this whole conversation? As hopefully a few of our leaders are putting those thoughts together because we learn from each other. You had talked about the concept of agent buy-in, and I guess the question is, what recommendations, Laura, do you have as it relates to getting agents on board on what AI is going to mean for their future experience? I mean, some of them would be very embracing of it. They'd be, if they've got 12 different screens, anything less is a great thing.
Right. And I think this goes back to the fact that they actually do want to help the customer, right? And that really leads us to get that agent buy-in, kind of the processes that we have set up, right? Are we encouraging agents to know that AI is a tool, right? It's really easy to feel like we're losing our jobs to the bot um, or whatever other thing that AI is providing. But if we position it that it's actually there and it can help them as a human provide a better experience, cut down on the places where they have to go to get that information, right? We don't have to deal with the screens, right? Have their thinking be that information, as it always should have been, is now right there for them, right? But also help them understand the right way to leverage that guidance, right? Don't make this just something that we drop on the desktop. Create something exciting around it. Create a culture around it. Let them know that you're supporting them, and this is actually going to help them grow in what they can contribute to the business, right? This isn't, hey, your job has changed and now the rudimentary, you did A, but now this is going to do A, now you're doing B, good luck, right? There's a whole perspective on this is a cultural shift, and you are that much more important to the business, that helps agents understand that their job is not going away.
Right. A couple comments did come in, and I'll just share my thoughts. I'll read it out. First of all, Jason, on your comment, thank you. You're not alone. I would strongly suggest if you don't join the Kia community, online community, do it and put some of this out there. So Jason's saying that, empowering can mean many different things, agent. Sadly, I don't have all the technology available to my agents for some of the cooler things we discussed here. I'm reading Jason's words, but have had tremendous success with agent engagement in the past with autonomy process. So simple forms whereby agents can make a decision in the moment outside of the normal rules if they like to do the right thing, and kind of goes on from there. First of all, Jason, great job on the creativity and keep doing it. Maybe there are other ideas you could post out to the community that people would share with you where they've done with limited budget or limited tools, or other ideas around it. Or even, I guess for us here, if we would have, Laura, the ability to keep us posted with ideas or creative ideas or starting points, get that over to us and we'll make sure we push that out there too. So that would be my.
I think that's great. I mean, as a community,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great if we can help each other come up with, because Jason, you're not alone. I feel like we're in a support group now, but
we call these therapy sessions.
Right. But the problem is we don't always have the technology at our fingertips. We don't always have the budget until Q3 or whatever, right? I mean, this is the reality of the world we live in. And it's, businesses have budgets and they have spend and they have to be adjusted. But I love the fact that you came up with a way to help agents understand that you respected their ability and wherewithal to make the decision that was both right for the business and right for the customer. And you gave them a look, maybe it was, I'll call it an old school way that you did it, but it didn't make their job harder. It made them feel that they were, that they were capable of doing it. Right. And no repercussion.
Last quick comment, and we got to close up. Lisa, your question you put in there, you want to help me do a webinar on this one? What evidence is there that BPOs are actively recruiting for a different profile of CSR and how the pay rates are keeping up with the need for a more skilled agent? Lisa, there is no way I can answer that question or give you my perspective in the 1 minute we have. I will say a comment though, just knowing some of the partners in the community, that it is, for a lot of them, top of mind. It's a continuation of review, discussion, evaluation. So I wouldn't say it's completely on deaf ears, maybe in some corners, but it's a big topic in conversation. Love to have it. Maybe you'll help lead me a conversation around that. Lisa, reach out. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem, right? Because there's how is the business measured on how they deliver versus what's needed for them to be providing as a service, right? And so it's a great, like you said, Chad, we could have an hour-long conversation on that.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time. We're out of time, and I always respect everyone's schedule. We've got to keep moving on. Laura, thank you for today. Stay close. Continue to share with us. You guys have the Resource Center. There were some links there that we provided. Make sure you capture some of that knowledge there in the Resource Center. Keep customer number one. We'll see you at the next discussion. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Laura, thank you for being a great guest with us today. Thank you
So much.